Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's live trading session and trade review session. As always, if you have questions, please post those in the relevant area, and either during the course of this session or shortly afterwards, I will revert with an answer. I don't have any trades on at the moment. There was one buy just before we started this session. At 33,830 limit bid, missed a couple of times as the market went down there, and then sold out of that eventually when the trade was taken at 33,864. So a decent little trade. I have a bid that I'm working at the moment, which is at about 33,775. This is a 15-minute chart that we're looking at on the Dow at the moment. So it's just about the lowest level that we saw yesterday. Also, similar levels that we bounced off back on the 28th and 29th of June. So only the one trade. So won't be looking really to build on that position. Just see what happens when we get down and trade, or if we trade this level. There's no guarantee that we're going to get down there, but if we trade this level and just show you there the three areas that we've touched off of that in recent times. Obviously from this move we've had a fairly significant move to the upside here, where we've sold back off from over the last couple of days. So in terms of the last couple of days, the S&P has had its worst day, or the worst day yesterday since the end of May. I think the Dow Russell 2000 had their worst day since the beginning of May, and from my perspective, it's been another difficult week. Having difficulties with the currencies. The indices are going reasonably well, as we can see with the trades today. Only the one currency trade, trying to keep myself away from that a little bit, and allow the market to move first. And as we can see on the back of non-farm payroll, we've had a fair degree of volatility in all of the markets, in the currencies, in gold, and of course in the indices as well. So if I'm looking at the indices, or more specifically, not just the indices, but the Dow, ahead of this session, I'm just going to take it down to a 1 minute chart. So you can see the aggressive moves that we've seen quite clearly displayed there on the right hand side of your screen, in terms of the types of moves that we've seen since the release of non-farm payroll. So I think I sold here around 33,950 to get out of a long position, and then I've bought down at these levels to get out on this bounce. There was a lot more in the trade. I think we went up to about 875, 876, so there was significantly more in that trade had you held on a little bit longer. But as always, when we're looking at non-farm payroll, you've got that initial move on the news, and then we've also got a secondary move as we come into the opening bell, as we are now. So we're back trading around those levels that I bought a few minutes ago, so around that 33, 835, 840 level. Not going to rush in here. I'm going to hold off and see if we get a bit of selling pressure on the open. As you'll have heard from me many times over the last few months and years, there will be market open orders, and these will need to be executed within a short period of time. And if there are an excess of sellers over buyers, which is starting to look like that is the case as we approach the opening bell, could well push into that limit that I'm running around 33,775. So we'll just wait and see on that one. Looking around the other markets at the moment, had a fairly good day with the DAX today. The low, and I'm going to come back to the DAX after I finish, after we look at the opening bell, and then come back to the trades that have been done. I just want to talk a lot about the trading that's gone on here in this particular period. So this is a 5 minute chart. I'll take it down to a 1 minute chart when we start to talk about it. Hopefully we'll get to see it all on a 1 minute chart. But just look at the opportunities that existed in there, a number of opportunities, and then that significant move to the upside, which ultimately ended up being about 100 pips of a movement if you'd managed to stay in it for that particular amount of time. But I'll talk about that a little bit after the opening. So as it stands at the moment, we're off the highs in the DAX. As you can see, we're off the highs in the Dow as well, and with the currencies have settled back after those initial moves. So I think the sterling did go up to above 128, as we can see here, went up to about 128.04. Sorry, I'll just bring this up on the screen, just conscious that we are getting closer to the opening bell. So we can see with sterling there, we went up to about 128.07, 28.06, somewhere around that. Bit of a gap there on the, now this is only a 1 minute chart, so it looks like it's a big gap, but there was a gap after the release of non-farm payroll, jumped to the upside, continued to rally, and then we've closed that gap and jumped again up from those levels to about 127.73, where we're trading at this particular point. Not going to see the gap on the euro. This is a 1 minute chart, but again, similar sort of story. See that significant move to the upside. Traded up to about 129.30. I sold at 109.30. I sold at 109.24. Bought back a little bit too quickly, but I think that's a consequence of the last few days with the currencies, which I'll expand on a little bit. A significant move to the upside. Under 3 minutes or so to go now to the opening bell. So gold has popped back up again to about 1921. Interested in selling this. Did sell it around the release on non-farm payroll. Jumped up well above where my particular order was. Going to take this down to a 1 minute chart. So again, similar story to the currencies, significant move to the upside. I was taken out about 1922 or just under 1922 on that particular move, and then had to wait for it to come back down. Been as low as 1915 since the release of non-farm payroll, and we do seem to be now obviously with gold, what we might see over the remainder of the day, if we do see concerted selling pressure coming into the Dow, it may well be that we see a better bid in gold. I think my anticipation for the remainder of the day is that probably gold and the currencies will start to come off. The indices I'm a little bit undecided with, or the Dow I'm a little bit undecided with. A lot is going to be told when we see the moves around that opening bell. What I'm expecting to see is a little bit of downward pressure, but then buyers to materialise once we dip below 33,800. So we'll see how that plays out in a few minutes. As I said, gold as we trade a little bit higher from the level that we're currently at, I'm certainly interested in selling into that particular market. In terms of non-farm payroll, I haven't really touched on it too much. The estimate for non-farm payroll before the number was released was an estimate of about 224,000 jobs being added, so 224. Number came in at 209, which was lighter than expected. I think on the back of ADP and JOLTS data yesterday, people were looking for a significantly so somebody is saying that they're only seeing me and a black screen. I don't know, Sam set this up for me, apologies. Let me move the screen over and then maybe somebody can tell me. So I'll swap screens. Does that make it any better? Can you see the markets now? I'll have to change things around here a little bit. You'll know that me and technology aren't the best of friends. Now I can't see your answers, but let me close that down for a sec. No, it's not going to work for me. Right, so I'm going to leave I'm going to leave that screen there and hope that you are seeing what I think you're seeing. If you're not, maybe Sam will text me in a minute or so. So we have opened there. I'm just going to bring the Dow up whilst I'm talking. So we didn't quite get a trigger on that order. We went down to about 780 or 780 so far I've seen. So very close to a trigger here, 779. Unfortunately, still no trigger on that trade, and we've picked up a little bit. So if anybody did get into that trade at a slightly larger price, there are opportunities to get out of that already. I'll continue to hold the trade. If you're not seeing the screens, I have to apologise. We'll get now. Unfortunately, the market's jumped a good bit now, so didn't manage to get away on that trade. I don't believe. I'm just double checking on my phone now as I was waylaid a little bit there whilst I was trying to sort that out for you. Yeah, so no trade there so far. Had you bought or bought close to those levels, you'd be the best part of 50 pips or so to the upside at the moment. So there is, or there was, that initial part of selling into the opening bell, and we've recovered a little bit from that particular point. So trading around 8.30 at the moment, 8.40. So no trade done there, and unfortunately I'm not going to chase this market higher at this particular point. I do like these levels. I do think that there are opportunities to get involved on the buy side, but unfortunately I'm not going to chase the market higher at this particular point. Gold has traded higher. Gold is up there at 1924 or around the 1924 level at this particular moment. So if we see 1924 and a half, I'll be looking to sell into that and see where we go from that point. So the Dow's traded all the way up to 865 now, 870. So if you've got that trade on, there's the best part of 100. Well, there is over 100 pips in that particular trade at the moment. I'm just going to sell gold here at 1924. Just because I've missed out on that Dow trade, which is now trading around 33,895. So good, so it's just gone above 900, so up to 905 at this particular point, and continuing to look particularly strong. So I'm going to leave the markets there as I'm talking. The euro, sterling, both moved back up to the upside. I am now short gold. The DAX has picked up a little bit. So what I'll do, because I'm hoping that you're seeing the right screen now, is I'll bring over the trades for this week, and I'll just talk a little bit about those before I go back to the DAX and then finish up. So the punishment this week for me has been in the currencies. We can see that on Thursday, on Tuesday, to a lesser degree on Monday, but currencies have, and obviously I trade the currencies in a bit bigger size. The currencies have had that effect on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Wednesday and today to this point have been very good, flawless for the trades that I put on that particular day. A lot of trades this morning in the DAX around the 470 level. I just want to talk about that in a little bit more detail before I finish up. And as you can tell, I'm a little bit exposed as to whether or not you are seeing the relevant screens, and unfortunately I've lost the screen on which you communicate with me on. So gold still hovering around that 1924 level, and the indices or the Dow around that 33,900 level. So I'm just going to bring up, just before we finish off here, just going to bring up the DAX. I'm going to take this down to, that's a 5-minute chart. So this is a 1-minute chart, and the part that I really want to look at here, I suppose, actually that's not going to take me far enough back, so I'm going to have to do this on a 5-minute chart. So on the 5-minute chart, this is the area that I wanted to look at here. So the area down here is around the 470 level. This is the level that I started. This was the third DAX trade, I think, this morning. So I thought the 500 level was going to be well protected. Unfortunately, we dived through it rather too easy, and then I started to buy around 470. The move below 500 for me was the potential for, or did have the potential for a breakout. Obviously, the first part of that does lend itself towards a false breakout. So I was buying here around the 470 level and then selling as we rallied 20 or so pips. But you can see how many times we touched off of this level and then rallied. You know, they were quite significant. There's probably 9 different opportunities to get in to exactly the same trade, exit that trade, get back in, exit, etc., etc. So just once that level is hitting, now I took the trade 3 times. I've spoken to some of you today who took the trade 5 or 6 times. In the back of my head, I think that some of these levels, when you are having these breakout levels, you tend to test them between 4 and 5 times. And after I'd successfully completed the trade 3 times, I was reluctant to put a 4th trade in. I know some of you did this 5 or 6 times during that particular session, and there was a lot of opportunity to do that, and it bounced well, and it's a level that I'll certainly be looking at over the next few days if we do trade back to those levels. But just the message was, I suppose, or the lesson is just being able to repeat those trades in that particular period. Market then boomed ahead. You know, you could potentially have been on that trade again at 470, went all the way up to 600 before it started to trade a little bit sideways. But just those sort of opportunities. As we traded higher, I got out the trades that I bought earlier in the day. But the message, I suppose, is more about repeating those trades when the opportunity presents. So just looking back at the markets before we finish up here, been up to 900 in the Dow, back down to 835. The gold has come off a little bit, not significantly since I sold it, but there's probably 15 to 20, or there has been 15 to 20 pips worth of profit in that trade. So I might just look to take profit on that in a minute, or when we close this particular session. Just having a quick look at it now. Didn't get the price that I wanted, but I've closed the gold. I'll leave you here, and I'll be back on Telegram very, very shortly. And if all you did see today was a blank screen, I apologise. I'm not the tech whiz. I'll get on to him now. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you